The gathering of the Galactic Confederation was a spectacle of evolved life. Representatives from 100 worlds filled the grand hemispherical chamber, their forms as diverse as the stars themselves. Some were sleek and avian, perched on high stalks. Others were amorphous, shifting in gel-filled tanks. The air hummed with translated whispers and the faint, sweet scent of a dozen different atmospheres. At the center of the chamber stood Envoy Kazuki Tanaka, the first official human representative to make planetfall on the Confederation's homeworld, Etheria. He was a man of unremarkable stature by his own people's standards, with dark hair and calm, observant eyes. He wore a simple, deep blue tunic, the only symbol of his office, a small pin depicting Earth, a blue marble cradled in a silver olive branch. The Supreme Arbiter, and a being of crystalline structure that pulsed with a soft internal light, began the proceedings. "We have reviewed the preliminary data from the Sol system." Its voice was a harmonic chime that resonated in the very bones of the listeners. "The planet designated Earth is noted. However, the application for full membership in the Galactic Confederation requires a more detailed assessment." A murmur of condescending amusement huddles on a single world. In this day of huddles on a single world, in this day of vast stellar empires, what could they possibly contribute? Our databases indicate their technology is primitive, their lifespans tragically short. They have only recently achieved rudimentary faster-than-light travel, added Counselor Xylos, a being of immense intellectual pride from the high-gravity world of Therabon. His forearms gestured with dismissive grace. "Their science is in its infancy. They speak of nation-states and borders as if they were concepts of importance. It is quaint, but hardly the stuff of a Confederation member." Tanaki remained silent, his expression placid. He had been warned to expect this. Humanity was the newcomer, the unknown variable. The Confederation was ancient, stable, and highly evolved. To them, Earth was a backwater, a primitive rock on the fringe of explored space. Counselor Vor pressed on, a ripple of amusement passing through his aquatic form. "Their homeworld's parameters are, frankly, alarming. The surface gravity is a crushing one, a challenge for most species. More importantly, their atmospheric composition is highly reactive, almost corrosive. It's a wonder any complex life could evolve there at all." "The data is quite clear," Xylos concurred, his multiple eyes narrowing. "It's a world of constant, violent geological activity. Tectonic plates grind against each other, causing the very ground to shake. The atmosphere generates hurricane-force storms with electrical discharges of immense power. The range of surface temperatures is staggering, from frozen wastelands to searing deserts." Another voice, slick and oily, joined the chorus. It was Valerius, a representative from a mercantile guild. "Deathworld," he hissed, the term carrying a weight of instinctive revulsion across the chamber. "A death world. They are a primitive, a violent species born of a violent planet. Their entire history, from what little we can gather, is one of conflict, with their environment and with each other. How can we expect such a species to adhere to our codes of civility, to our patient diplomacy?" The chamber fell into a contemplative silence, broken only by the soft hum of the Arbiter's crystal form. The unspoken consensus was clear. The human envoy was an amusing anomaly. A representative from a planet so hostile, it was practically a biological impossibility for the rest of them. They expected him to be intimidated, to be meek, to offer pleas and promises. Tanaka finally stepped forward, his movements unhurried. He placed a small metallic case on the central dais. "Honorable counselors," he began, his voice clear and calm, cutting through the murmurs. You have accurately described the physical parameters of my home world. You call it a death world. And from your perspective, I understand why. He pressed a button on the case. A three-dimensional holographic projection of Earth spun slowly in the air above them. It was beautiful, a swirl of white clouds against deep blue oceans and green-brown land masses. On Earth, Tanaka continued, the ground does indeed shake. We call it an earthquake. In my great-grandfather's time, one such quake leveled a city of 10 million people. He survived by digging himself and his family out of the rubble with his bare hands. The next day, he began helping his neighbors rebuild. He manipulated the hologram, zooming in on a satellite image of a hurricane. These storms you mentioned, we call them hurricanes or typhoons. They carry winds that can strip the flesh from your bones. My people have learned to predict their paths, to build structures that can withstand their fury. We fly aircraft directly into the eye of these storms to gather data, to better protect our coastal cities. The chamber grew quiet. The condescending smiles began to fade. Tanaka then shifted the image to a vast, barren landscape. And the temperature variations. Here is the Gobi Desert. Daytime temperatures can exceed 40 degrees Celsius. At night, they can fall below freezing. My ancestors crossed such places on foot, carrying everything they owned, to find new homes. They did so not in climate-controlled vehicles, but with leather and cloth and sheer stubborn will. He paused, letting the images speak for themselves. You see, counselors, you have made a fundamental error in your assessment. You see a death world as a place of constant passive threat. You see a species that must have survived only by luck or by a desperate, brutish struggle. He looked directly at Counselor Xylos. But surviving a high-gravity world like Therabon requires immense physical strength, yes. It is a constant pressure your bodies have adapted to. For you, the gravity is a fact of life, a gentle, unwavering hand pressing you down. He then turned to face the entire assembly. My world is not a place of one constant pressure. It is a place of a million sudden, unpredictable, and violent pressures. The ground doesn't just press, it rips itself apart. The air doesn't just blow. It screams with the force of 1 billion tons of water. The temperature doesn't just vary. Yes, it swings from life-giving to life-taking in a matter of hours. His voice, though still calm, gained a new, unshakable resonance. This is not a place where strength is simply maintaining form against a steady force. This is a place where survival requires adaptation. It requires prediction. It requires preparation. It requires cooperation on a scale you cannot imagine. When a city is leveled, we do not wait for a central authority to save us. Our neighbors, our communities, our very strangers, they dig through the rubble to find the living. When a storm comes, we do not simply hide. We board up our windows, we fill our shelters, and we brace for impact. He gestured to himself. I stand before you, a product of that world. My body is adapted to a gravity that would crush many of you. My lungs process an atmosphere you would find toxic. But more importantly, my mind is adapted to chaos. My entire cultural history is one of staring into the face of catastrophic, unpredictable danger and saying, not today. The silence in the chamber was now absolute. The amused whispers were gone. Counselor Vor's bioluminescent patterns had stilled. Counselor Xylos's multiple eyes were wide, fixed on the human. We do not see our world as a death world, Tanaka concluded, his voice softening. We see it as our home. A difficult home, a demanding home, but a home that has forged us into something that perhaps you do not yet understand. We are not survivors because we are lucky. We are survivors because we are human. He stepped back, leaving the hologram of Earth spinning slowly in the stunned silence of the Galactic Council. The mockery had ended. The assessment had just begun. The silence that followed Envoy Tanaka's presentation was a living thing, thick and heavy in the chamber. It was the silence of a paradigm shattering. The counselors, who moments before had been exchanging glances of condescending amusement, now stared at the spinning blue marble with a new and uncomfortable expression. Dawning respect, laced with a primal fear they couldn't quite articulate. Counselor Valerius, the merchant, was the first to recover, though his slick voice had lost its oily confidence. Impressive rhetoric, Envoy, truly. You speak of adaptation and community, but rhetoric does not build star lanes or manage interstellar economies. What can your world of chaos actually do? What can you offer the Confederation that we cannot already obtain from our established, our stable members? It was the question everyone wanted answered, the question that would move them from theory to practice. Tanaka nodded, expecting it. He lifted the metallic case, and from a concealed compartment, he produced a simple, flat, gray rectangle about the size of his palm. It was unremarkable, with no visible ports or controls. "This," he said, holding it up, "is a problem." A holographic display shimmered above the rectangle, showing a complex, tangled mess of shimmering threads. It looked like a chaotic, three-dimensional spider web. "This is a representation of a trans-dimensional rift fluctuation. It's the primary cause of instability in your fold space highways, is it not? These fluctuations appear randomly, collapsing trade routes for weeks at a time and occasionally swallowing ships whole." A murmur of agreement and surprise went through the chamber. Every counselor knew the problem. It was the single greatest limitation on their interstellar commerce, a problem the greatest minds of the Confederation had been trying to solve for 1,000 cycles. They had learned to predict large rifts, but the small chaotic fluctuations were a constant, expensive nuisance. "Our scientists call these eddies in the fabric of reality," Tanaka continued. "They are unpredictable, violent, and seemingly random. For your mathematicians, they are a nightmare. They cannot be modeled because the variables are too numerous, the interactions too chaotic." He set the gray rectangle down on the dais. A faint hum emanated from it, and the chaotic holographic web began to change. The shimmering threads didn't disappear, but they began to pulse with a new rhythmic light. The chaotic tangle started to resolve not into a simple, orderly pattern, but into a series of complex, interlocking, and understandable flows. It was still chaotic, but now it was a mapped chaos. "This is a prototype of a human-designed compensator," Tanaka explained. "It doesn't try to fight the chaos or impose an artificial order upon it. Instead, it reads the real-time fluctuations and calculates the path of least resistance. It doesn't eliminate the eddies. It navigates them." Counselor Xylos, the intellectual from Therabon, leaned forward, his four hands gripping the edge of his podium. "That is impossible. Our most advanced quantum computational matrices require a cycle to model a single fluctuation. You claim this device can do it in real time?" Tanaka shook his head. "It doesn't model it, Counselor. It feels it. The principle is based on a human science we call chaos theory and its practical application. We live with chaos. We have learned to think within it. The compensator's core processor isn't a logic engine. It's an adaptive neural network trained on millennia of our own chaotic weather patterns, seismic data, and economic market shifts. It understands turbulence, because turbulence is the default state of our existence." He then produced a small, clear vial containing what looked like simple gray dust. "And this is the second part of our offer. This dust is a byproduct of our asteroid refining processes. Your metallurgists would discard it as an impurity.